blames Queen's Park Football Club and gives them 3 days to save Hampden. Hundreds of farmers marched through Edinburgh claiming they're not getting a fair deal. And the school children who are joining in the chorus against racism. Good evening. Queen's Park Football Club, the owners of Hampden Park, have been told they have until the end of the week to accept a rescue package for the National Stadium. The Scottish executive says if they don't, the deal is off. The news that the project was once again in jeopardy was revealed on Reporting Scotland last night. In a moment, we'll examine how the National Stadium threatens to become a national embarrassment. But first, we report on the political fallout, and opposition claims that the executive has mishandled the crisis.
It's the home of Scottish football, the base of the Tartan Army. But it's owned by Scotland's oldest football club, Queen's Park. An amateur third division team controls Scotland's national ground. Building a new Hampden cost £65 million, nearly 30% over budget, leaving Queen's Park with huge debts it couldn't pay. A rescue package including £2 million of government money was offered, but ministers insisted the stadium must be managed by the Scottish Football Association. Queen's Park said no and called in administrators, much to the anger of the Sports Minister, caught unawares.
We've sought a mechanism and established the mechanism that would allow these debts to be dealt with. Queen's Park Football Club have now walked away from that, and we need to find out why. But what we can't have is, once again, the government being held to ransom.
For months, opposition MSPs have accused the executive of mishandling the situation, which could see Scotland's national stadium being sold off to pay creditors.
It's a farce, and it's sad to use a word like that about our national stadium, but Hampden has become the longest running pantomime in the Scottish Parliament.
With the rescue package, Queen's Park could have debts of less than £100,000. A Tory MSP finds it incredible this amount of money could jeopardise a £65 million national stadium.
It's laughable. What we need to know from the Scottish Executive, from Sam Galbraith, is that the funding is in place, that it will go ahead, that the project will be completed, and that nothing so silly as a £100,000 shortfall will prevent it.
In the last game at Hampden, Scotland lost. In the worst case scenario, Scotland could lose Hampden itself. John Morrison, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
So just how did Scottish sport's most prestigious project find itself in such a mess? How did what was called the National Field of Dreams become such a nightmare?
When Hampden's final redevelopment started 4 years ago, confident pledges were made that a stadium the nation could be proud of would rise from the rubble. The new Hampden's first showpiece was the Scottish Cup final in May. But not long after the cup had been held aloft, Hampden was haunted by rumours of a huge debt crisis. The top line was debt of more than £8 million. Sir Robert McAlpine, the builders, was owed £4 million. £1 million of that was paid by giving McAlpine seats at the stadium. The Hampden Rescue Plan offered a further £4.4 million, £2 million of that straight from the executive's coffers. That left Queen's Park with a debt of around £3 million, to be paid off over 10 years. The trade-off was that Queen's Park's board had to hand over the running of the entire project to the SFA. Sports Minister Sam Galbraith announced a final agreement on the Hampden rescue 10 days before Christmas. But now Queen's Park have appointed administrators, so the outside accountants Arthur Anderson are now on as last-minute subs to save the game before the final financial whistle is blown. The current deal offers Queen's Park £200,000 a year for 20 years, along with use and ownership of the stadium. Not bad when the liability of each club director is limited to only £5. It did seem that Hampden's financial crisis had been sorted with big money goals in extra time. Now it looks like it's going to a penalty shootout. Bob Wiley, Reporting Scotland.
Coming up later on tonight's programme, what millennium triumphs and disasters are in store for Scotland's parliamentarians, and the ancient artefact that has left historians scratching their heads. And now with a look ahead to all tonight's sports news, over to Rob McLean.
Thanks, Jackie. Let's hear it for the Highlands after Peterhead and Elgin City followed in the footsteps of Inverness and Ross County to claim places in the Scottish Football League will have all the reaction. Plus, the SFA are set to scrap their distribution system for Scotland tickets. And track star Colin Jackson heralds the return of world-class athletics to Glasgow. Coming up.
Thanks, Rob. But first, a London police officer has claimed that the television presenter Sheena MacDonald was under the influence of alcohol at the time of a traffic accident in which she sustained serious head injuries. The allegation came on the first day of the trial of PC Glenn Whiteley, the driver of a police van which hit Miss MacDonald in the Islington area of London. He's charged with driving without due care and detention.
Sheena MacDonald was knocked down by a police van at this crossing in North London last February. She'd been returning home when the accident happened. The vehicle, which was responding to an emergency, had been avoiding a line of waiting traffic at a red light and was travelling on the wrong side of the road. The driver, PC Glenn Whiteley, is on trial and denies driving without due care and attention. There was a large media interest in the trial at Horseferry Magistrates Court in central London, which heard how Miss MacDonald had been knocked down and pulled under the bumper as the van, with its sirens and blue lights on, had skidded to a halt. Miss MacDonald suffered severe head injuries and lay in a coma for 72 hours. The other officer in the van told the court he'd warned his colleague about a pedestrian, but next thing he knew she'd been hit. He claimed she appeared to have been under the influence of alcohol, but there was evidence from other witnesses who'd been with her who said she'd had 2 glasses of wine earlier in the evening. Since the accident, the Metropolitan Police has decided to fit black box recorders in its vehicles, which may help in future cases. The prosecution in this case say PC Whiteley was entitled to drive on the wrong side of the road, but failed to show the utmost care. The trial continues. Tim Reid reporting, Scotland, Central London.
More than 700 farmers have marched through Edinburgh calling for a fair deal for agriculture. Petitions outlining their case were presented to the Scottish Parliament. They claim unless action is taken now, the industry in Scotland will face long-term problems.
A subdued start to their protest march for an industry that farmers say is facing a subdued future. Fair trade for farming is what they want, and action from the government. Foreign exchange rates and the high value of sterling claims the industry as the latest thing to hit agriculture, and they need help now.
The public want to eat good, wholesome, quality, safe food. I think the public want the environment and the land of Scotland to look as it looks at the moment, and without the agricultural industry that won't happen. And it may well be too late before they realise how much they've lost if the government don't step in now and help the industry through this current crisis.
They come from throughout Scotland to make their way through the capital to present 8 petitions to the Scottish Parliament, all outlining their case to help safeguard the futures of thousands of families across the country. Farmers say it's a crisis, but the government are reluctant to use such language.
This crisis that has, or not crisis, this financial problem that has beset the industry has now continued for a very long time, and I think it's a question of an understanding. I'm not too keen on words like crisis or sympathy. I think that's the wrong way to describe it. It's a difficult situation, and the UK ministers and the regional ministers have got to put that case if we are serious about having an agricultural industry that is going to survive.
The Scottish farmers will present their case for fair trade to the Governor of the Bank of England and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Gordon Brown, later this week. David Nisbet reporting, Scotland, Edinburgh.
The battle over who will get the lucrative job of scrapping the North Sea's redundant oil platforms is on. It's estimated that the market could be worth as much as £8.5 billion over the next 20 years. While the struggling Barmac fabrication yards in the Highlands are bidding for a share of the work, Shetland has started its fight for a slice of the business.
Shetland's new state-of-the-art waste-to-energy incinerator, burning industrial waste to heat hot water for Lerwick's district heating scheme, the plant will start processing offshore refuse later this month. It's just one of the attractions the islands are using to pitch for decommissioning work. Over the next 20 years, about 430 offshore installations are expected to be dismantled in the North Sea, with considerable opportunities on offer.
The market is very large. I've heard estimates from £8.5 billion upwards. The peak is very uncertain because it depends on the price of oil. I believe that many or a number of platforms will be decommissioned from around 2003 onwards.
The highly public dispute in 1995 between Shell and Greenpeace over the disposal of the Brent Spar oil store has also increased the decommissioning market. The controversy set the agenda for the industry to rule out deep-sea disposal for most installations. But competition to dispose of the platforms will be intense. not just from the yards such as Ardessey and Nigg in the Highlands, but across in Norway as well. In Shetland, the local authority has just invested £300,000 to market the islands.
The one big thing that stands out is that geographically we are ideally located. And the second big thing really is the facilities we've got here. We've got everything it needs to take ashore and dispose and recycle material. And we've got the will to do it.
So who are going to be the winners in the scramble to break up the oil platforms?
Certainly, Shetland can be a competitor, but it will have to compete with all the other construction yards, both in Scotland, such as Ardessey, Nigg and Kishorn, and also with yards in Norway. For some platforms, the deep water facility will be required, and this would give an advantage to, say, Kishorn or indeed the Norwegian yards.
When it comes, the final phase of oil activity in the North Sea will offer rich pickings for some. John Johnston, reporting Scotland, Shetland.
Marks & Spencer has hit back at claims that it breached its contract with the Scottish clothing maker William Baird by ending its 30-year relationship. Baird is suing the high street retailer for £53 million damages, claiming M&S should have given 3 years' notice to sever the contract instead of the summary termination it says it received in October. The move put 4,500 jobs at risk in the UK, including up to 700 in Scotland. The international cinema operator Star Century has signed a deal with Forth Ports to become another major tenant at its Ocean Terminal shopping complex in Leith. The development will include 12 cinemas with a total capacity of almost 3,000 seats. Forth Ports say that's more than half the available space at the Ocean Terminal has been filled or committed to. Performers from all over the world have begun arriving in Glasgow for this year's Celtic Connections Music Festival. But there's disharmony between our homegrown talent and the Arts Council. Some of the musicians claim they're overlooked during the rest of the year, with traditional music getting only 2% of the council's music budget compared to the 90% given to classical music. If that continues, they say they fear future performers will have to learn from CDs and television.
Final rehearsals for the opening concert of the 7th Celtic Connections Festival. Irish group Anuna, who first appeared in Riverdance, are among the 600 performers taking part. What started as a small winter event has become one of the biggest folk festivals in the country.
I don't think we can get much bigger. I don't think we want to get much bigger. I just think we want to maybe make sure that we just improve as each year goes by.
There are plenty of Scots on the bill, from stalwarts like Dougie MacLean to young blades like Martin Bennett. And while the festival offers a welcome platform for traditional music, musicians say we should be supporting it all year round.
There's a lot of book collecting been done over the last 150 years. There's quite a lot of material in books is written down, be it songs, words of songs, or be it tunes that have been written down. If people are not playing those tunes and they're not being heard, it will become a dead thing.
That's a point echoed by those who teach traditional music all year round, like these women tweed walking in Inverness. Jazz used to be the poor relation when it came to public funding. These days it's traditional music, which gets just 0.6% of the Scottish Arts Council's overall budget.
We need to be able to put some money their way. I mean, we're not talking about a lot of money here, but just as an incentive to go and learn further, if you like, so that they don't all end up learning from CDs and television.
But with Celtic music centre stage in Scotland for the next month, there's a chance to win new support, as well as new audiences for Scotland's oldest traditions. Pauline McLean, reporting Scotland.
Archaeologists say they're baffled by the discovery of an ancient wooden carving on the shores of Loch Lomond. Dubbed Hector, the wooden face has thrown up more questions than answers, and conservationists are appealing for help to try and solve the mystery.
They know where he was found and how he was found, but despite exhaustive inquiries the length and breadth of Britain, no one knows who Hector is, what he is, or where he's from. He was discovered by chance by workers for West of Scotland Water laying a new pipe near Luss on the shores of Loch Lomond.
We dug down maybe 1.5 metres into the peat, and I just happened to look around and seen a block of wood. Never thought anything of it at the time, and later on the day, coming up from a different direction, I noticed it's a face, and I picked up and it's a head, maybe a full-size head.
Although Hector could be at least 200 years old, archaeologists say he's only been out in the open for no more than 40 years. In that time, though, you can see he's been completely ravaged by the local wildlife. There have been 2 types of woodworm, earthworms, small flies and beetles, and they've eaten away completely the back of his head.
Here we have some x-rays of Hector's head and neck.
Archaeologists say he's unlike anything previously uncovered in Scotland. His face would have been painted, and he may even have worn a wig. And the fact that the place of his discovery isn't close to any significant site makes it even more baffling, but there have been a few theories.
He looks very like masks used to frighten naughty children in Indonesia. There's a long tradition of Victorian soldiers, diplomats and travellers bringing home what we would look at now as anthropological specimens, just as souvenirs.
So what happens to Hector now that he's been restored? Well, the Treasure Trove Advisory Panel will decide later this year which Scottish museum should become his permanent home. Wherever he goes, conservationists say they won't give up trying to find out who he is or what he is. Fiona Henderson reporting Scotland.
Well, I wonder if they can do with a few old heads in our young Scottish Parliament. It got back to business today for the first formal session of the year. But what's in store for our fledgling administration? Well, when pressed to analyse and preempt the unpredictable spin-doctoring world of politics, our political editor Brian Taylor often complains he hasn't got a crystal ball. So we gave him one. Eat your heart out, Mystic Meg.
It's a new millennium, the dawn of a new age. Scotland has a new parliament, heralded with solemn pageantry and popular pleasure. For this new era, I foresee Scotland's new democracy battling gamely with the same old problems. But there is a new dimension. Gazing into the crystal, I see the future focus upon new laws driven by a purely Scottish mandate. School standards, transport charges, land reform. Our elected tribunes insist they can dispel the fog of politics. Then the unforeseen, or events the party machines didn't programme. On or around the Ides of March, the people of Ayr will elect a new MSP. I foresee that whoever wins that by-election will declare that an historic moment has arrived. It will, of course, be no such thing. Perhaps the truth lies in the cards. Certainly the tarot provides the qualities our leaders will need. Judgment, strength, justice, and because this is new politics, temperance. The year ahead, too, will decide reputations. Will the Emperor, that's the First Minister to you and me, have a good year? Or is there a rival emerging at court? Not for some time yet, I would guess. I expect Jim Wallace to strike a compromise deal over student tuition fees, while persuading the public that his manifesto pledge to abolish them is still intact. I expect that because the alternative, collapsing the coalition, would be politically inept for his party. Finally, political palmistry. As ever, the love line doesn't exactly stretch across the parties, or even frankly within them. Personal fortune for our MSPs? Well, that's now strictly limited by the Standards Committee. The intelligence line in the Parliament, that's strong, but perhaps a little varied. I'm sure, however, we can now say that the parliamentary lifeline can be confidently extended.
What, no naked silhouette of a dancer, or am I going too far back in time? Rob McLean?
No, that was never proved.
Rob McLean, follow that.
Thanks, Jackie. 2 more Highland clubs have won a place in senior Scottish football. Peterhead and Elgin City came out on top in a vote by the current 30 league clubs. They follow in the footsteps of Inverness and Ross County, who've both made a big impact in the SFL since the last round of reorganisation in 1994. 9 clubs applied to join the league. 2 places were available because of the expansion of the Scottish Premier League. There was no joy in the south, and the losers include Gallifrey, who've now tried and failed twice to bring the Borders into the senior game.
It was an anxious wait for the 9 non-league outfits, with Peterhead the favourites, closely followed by Highland League rivals Elgin City and Gallifrey from the south. The tension mounted as the clubs were called in to learn their fate. And then the winners.
I have to announce that the successful clubs after a ballot were in the first ballot Peterhead Football Club and in the second ballot Elgin City Football Club. I think it's the best thing that's happened to Peterhead in many years.
You were hot favourites, but did you think in your heart of hearts that you were going to make it?
We never took anything for granted, but we would have been absolutely devastated if we'd been unsuccessful.
Absolutely fantastic. Really pleased, really pleased. We've conveyed the news back to Elgin, and I'm told that they're doing somersaults in the Elgin City Social Club just now, so everybody's very pleased.
Both Peterhead and Elgin come from fairly major population centres, and therefore, given that they both have facilities which are an acceptable standard already, I think that would be the overwhelming factor in the minds of the clubs as they cast their votes.
Disappointment yet again, though, for Gallifreydine. They missed out 6 years ago, but the fight goes on in the south.
Geographically, the Borders, the south, is still crying out for league football, and I'm not going to give up. I think that league football at some point in time in the future will come to the Borders.
Oh, I'm absolutely gutted. I don't know what to say. It's, as I said before, I had a gut feeling that's what they would do, but I just didn't want to believe that.
Peterhead's presentation to the league, though, was rated by far the most impressive of any of the candidates. The town is gearing up for life outside the Highland League and into the 3rd Division.
It should make a big difference to the town. We can look forward to much more support at Balmoor Stadium, I would think.
We've probably got more fans in some of the teams that's in here already, so I think people will get interested, come along.
Next season, the 3rd Division clubs can now also look forward to visiting Boroughbriggs, the home of Elgin City.
That's what it needs up here. A bit more excitement with football.
If they do as well as the last two, they'll be very good. They do a lot for the city.
We're proud of Elgin City, and we think they've done very well, and we support them 100%. Yep.
Well done, Elgin and Peterhead. Dunfermline's hopes of leaving the SFL were enhanced today by a double signing. They've sealed the transfer of midfielder Ian Ferguson, who claimed an incredible 24 major winners' medals at Rangers. Signed as well as Belgian keeper Chris Mampey, who played in the Champions League this season with Dutch team Willem II. Businessman Jim Cummings will try again to win a seat on the Aberdeen board, despite being blocked at last night's annual general meeting. He was given a big vote of confidence by shareholders, but club directors were able to keep him away from the boardroom by calling for an unprecedented second vote based on volume of shares held. Chairman Stuart Milne said Mr Cummings could still be successful if the current management review decided there was a need for more directors. The SFA's ticket distribution scheme for big Scotland games is set to be scrapped. The telephone hotline for the Euro 2000 playoff against England at Hampden collapsed minutes after it opened, causing chaos. It looks like being replaced by a loyalty scheme in which die-hard Scotland supporters are rewarded for regular attendance. World-class athletics returns to Glasgow in March. At the Kelvin Hall, Great Britain will take on the might of Russia, Canada, France and one other nation still to be named. The British team will be led by Olympic Games gold medal hopeful Colin Jackson.
How did you become a hot
Colin Jackson is well aware of the enthusiasm of Scottish athletics fans. The success of the recent GBV USA meetings at Scotstoun has gone a long way towards securing this new event with top-class competition.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Canada and France already been guaranteed that. So, you know, there's a few which makes me a little bit nervous because I know the hurdlers from those countries as well. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to be running in Glasgow. Everybody's expecting me to win, and these guys are going to be close. But yeah, no, obviously I've got to be still nice and confident in it and kind of hold my head up high and say, well, I'm world indoor, I'm world outdoor champion, so I should be the man in front.
And this year's indoor season has added significance in preparation for the Olympic Games in Sydney. The Olympic gold has so far eluded Jackson, who has Commonwealth, European and World titles to his name. This year he's determined to succeed.
Yeah, definitely the Olympic Games is the major thing for me. I know my final's on the 25th of September, so I'm hoping on the 26th I'll have a big smile.
Before that, the March the 5th event comes just 1 week after the European Indoor Championships, ensuring top performers will be at their peak.
I think I want some of Colin Jackson's happy pills. Seem to be doing him all right. That's a sport jacket.
I think you do well enough as it is, Rob McLean. Thank you. Scottish pupils have put the anti-racist message to music. The competition, backed by Strathclyde Police, have also proved to be a showcase for new talent. But the main purpose was to encourage people of all backgrounds to sing in harmony.
Today's competition was a chance for the pupils to sing out their feelings on racism.
Behind the project were Strathclyde Police, who believe it could have more impact than conventional publicity campaigns.
There are too many racists in the world today. Far too many people are acting out this way.
The judging panel included representatives from entertainment and Scottish-based businesses who'd sponsored the competition.
Music is a great medium to cross all sort of cultures and barriers, to bring kids together. They understand music. It's not about lyrics, it's all about that rhythm, the beat and the feeling that you get from music.
The 7 finalists represented schools from all over the west of Scotland. The eventual winner, Judging with Our Eyes, written and performed by pupils from Auchenharvey Academy in Stevenston. In the best traditions of song competitions, the winner was almost too excited to speak.
Never expected it.
What inspired you to write the song?
Well, I get really annoyed when I hear racist attitudes, and I know that everyone judges with their eyes, as the title says. You know, everyone goes by the superficial and thinks that that's the way it should be, and I think that that's the problem with racism.
As part of the prize, Fiona and her backing group will record the song in a professional studio. Sandy Murray, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Staying with music, you may have thought Wet, Wet, Wet was a Scottish pop band. Unfortunately, it's tonight's weather forecast, isn't it, Heather?
Very appropriate. Thanks, Jackie. Hello there. I'm afraid we do have a good deal of heavy rain in prospect tonight before things gradually brighten up during tomorrow. But today, a rather cloudy looking sky for Inverness here, and the satellite picture does highlight a blanket of dark cloud draped across most of the British Isles, also producing some rain, especially in the north and west. This rain already more extensive this evening and heavy at times overnight, before gradually beginning to slip southwards, although it never does reach the southeast of England. So later on tonight, we'll eventually see some drier, clearer conditions nudging into the northwest of the country. But these central and southern areas will remain cloudy and wet. Heavy rain could cause some quite hazardous driving conditions in places, and we're likely to see some localised flooding as the night progresses. As far as temperatures are concerned, holding up at 4 or 5 Celsius under the cloud in these southern areas, but under clearing skies further north, temperatures will take a late dip, quite close to freezing inland, so some icy stretches forming on untreated roads. Tomorrow, starting off with that cloud and rain in the central belt, the southwest and in the borders, we should begin to break up and clear away during the morning, some brighter weather moving in the afternoon, although holding on to some rain quite close to the borders for much of the day. Brighter weather to the north, although we will have some showers to contend with, more especially in the northwest Highlands and the Western Isles, and there'll be falling of sleet or snow over high ground above about 300 metres, that's close to 1,000 feet. Sunshine and showers for the Northern Isles as well, some hail mixed in. The best of the sunshine probably in the northeast for Aberdeen and for Arbroath, although it should brighten up more in the south for the second half of the day. Temperatures ranging from 5 to 7 Celsius, so a rather chilly feel to the day, although lighter winds, but still quite fresh around the northwest coast. As for the rest of the UK tomorrow, cloud and rain across Northern Ireland into Northern England as well throughout the day. Some brighter weather in the southeast of England, although that rain will move in during tomorrow evening. Temperatures in double figures, 10 or 11 Celsius. The outlook for the next few days, and keep an eye on this high pressure area, does steadily move towards us. But on Thursday, before that happens, some gale force northerly winds and some snow showers in the north of the country, some sunshine further south before the weather begins to settle down later on in the week with a bit more in the way of sunshine for Friday. But tomorrow's summary, a cloudy, wet start in the south, brighter in the north with sunny spells and some showers. Jackie.
Thank you, Heather. And now a recap of tonight's top stories. Queen's Park Football Club, the owners of Hampden Park, have been told they have until the end of the week to accept a rescue package for the National Stadium. The Scottish executive says if they don't, the deal is off. Opposition MSPs say the Sports Minister, Sam Galbraith, has badly mishandled the situation. The effects of the flu outbreak continue to spread. Tens of thousands of non-urgent operations are being cancelled in hospitals throughout Britain as the NHS attempts to cope. The disgraced pop star Gary Glitter has been released from prison in Bristol after serving half of a 4-month sentence for downloading child pornography from the internet. He said he deeply regretted his actions. A police officer has claimed that the TV presenter Sheena MacDonald was under the influence of alcohol at the time of an accident in which she sustained serious head injuries. PC Glenn Whiteley is on trial at Horseferry Magistrates Court in London, charged with driving without due care and attention. That's all for now. We'll have an update just after the 9 o'clock news. Until then, from all of us, have a very good evening. Goodbye.
Manchester United are in action again tonight, and you can see the match against South Melbourne live here on BBC One from 8 o'clock tonight.
On Thursday, Fred Macaulay's comedy quest continues.
Scottish humour. Is it any different from the rest of the world?
Should I say F-E-R-R-E-D portrait?
From Harris to Firhill.
Oh, the battling, rattling, dandy old Jags.
Who are the Scots' favourite funsters?
Quiet everybody. Q Queen.
Hoops. Thursday at 10:30. BBC One Scotland. What does it take to be a castaway?
I don't think ethics come into it. It's survival of the fittest.
Why would you do it? Stop the world. I want to get off.
It would certainly improve me as a person.
This is my chance, and if I don't do it now, I never will.
What would you miss?
My duvet.
My cat.
My mum.
The biggest social experiment ever.
I was going to leave yesterday.
Castaway 2000, a new community for a new millennium, starts next Tuesday, 9:30, BBC One Scotland.
Is Irene's luck about to change? EastEnders in half an hour on BBC One Scotland after holiday with Craig Doyle.